Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of how to build your own PC. Today I will be talking about what I think is the most important part of your build, the CPU, otherwise known as the Central Processing Unit, also known as microprocessor or processor. The CPU is the center of the PC where the data collection occurs. Think of it as the brain of the PC. Once again, this will be a pretty crucial part of your build. The more computing power you have, the more tasks you'll be able to accomplish, such as gaming or video editing, multimedia design, that kind of thing. In this next slide, I will show you some of the stats you should consider when shopping for a CPU for your build. First of all, you should look at the clock speed, which is most commonly advertised by the CPU when shopping for a computer as a whole. The clock speed, which is measured in hertz, is how quickly the CPU can carry out instructions. However, this is not the sole basis for how good a CPU is, because two CPUs made years apart can have the same clock speed, but a newer CPU is still far superior. Another factor is the cache of the CPU, which is used to access data from RAM that is used frequently. The cache in the CPU have multiple levels, 1, 2, 3, and so on. So you would think having a larger cache would be better because you can load data quicker, right? Well, only up to a certain point. Having a massive cache pool will eventually cause slower retrieval in your data, and it'll be more expensive to have that extra memory in the chip there. Having the multiple levels is good because it's more efficient. It can go right through levels 1, 2, or 3. Some of you have level 4 now. Then going to RAM to get the data you need. Then that's better than having one single level with a bunch of cache. Now my third factor you should look into is the number of cores your CPU has. A multi-core CPU can contain more than one processing unit, or also known as a core, and they come in multiple configurations I have listed: dual core, quad core, hexacore, octa-core, that kind of thing. The advantage of having multiple cores is that multiple instructions can be carried out simultaneously, unless it gives you better performance. You can do more than one thing at once. The downside of the higher core chips, such as like an 8-core chip, is that not a lot of software, when it comes to operating systems or software in general, has really taken advantage of having, an example, an 8-core processor. A lot of them are still stuck on dual core and quad cores to really take advantage of that situation. Also, a multi-core CPU gets hotter, and you need a lot better cooling. Here's the thing, though: they've stopped making single-core processors a while ago. You can't get a single CPU that doesn't have multiple cores. Even the really cheap $200 or $300 laptop you buy at Walmart that has an Intel Celeron or Pentium processor, that's still a dual core, because to run the newer version of Windows you still need at least a dual core processor. But now that I've given you an idea of what to look for, I will talk about the two major brands of CPUs, which are Intel and AMD. I have a picture as an example of a current CPU from each company. On the left is the Intel Core i5-5930K and the AMD FX 9590. The major difference between the two companies for their chips is the price point. For example, my current CPU in my build that I showed in the first video is an AMD FX 8350, which is an 8-core processor, has a 4 GHz 4 GHz clock speed, and it has an 8 MHz level 2 cache. When I bought it, it was around $180, which at the time I didn't think was too bad for the performance that I got. The newest Intel 5th Gen chips just released recently. I found information on the 5820K i7, which was a 6-core processor and a 3.3 gigahertz. It had a level 3 cache of 15 megabytes, which the price on Newegg's website was $389. So there's a $200 difference. Granted, my processor's a little older, but the Intel that's just released is better than the one I have, but I would say only maybe 40-50% better, a third better than what I have now. Well, 30 to 50% anyway. But it costs $200 more than the chip that I bought. I'm not here to argue which brand is better, because the Intel chips have always used less power, always outperformed AMD, and always been run a lot cooler than the AMD counterparts. However, what I would like to say is that for the performance boost that Intel has, the pricing is a significant hike. So you get what you pay for. If you want to pay a lot more for the Intel's performance, then go ahead and do that. If you have the money, go ahead. If you're on a budget, you might want to consider an AMD chip. If you don't need the best of the best, and you don't mind that. So how far are you willing to go to spend for performance? It's up to you. Physical differences for the chips are that AMD has the pins coming out of the bottom of the chips. You can't see it in this picture, but you'll see it when I install the CPU I have into my motherboard, because it's an AMD chip. Whereas the Intel chips have all these contacts at the bottom, which makes them a little harder to damage installing them. Now, this last slide I'm going to show you shows the different socket types corresponding CPUs. The current socket for AMD is AM3 Plus, and the current Intel CPUs for the 5th gens that just released is LGA 2011 version 3. For the AMD side, I just listed the specific types of processors that go along with each socket, because they don't do a numbering system like Intel does. Since I said I have an FX 8350, so it'd go into an AM3 Plus socket. But for you to figure out which gen the processor you're looking at belongs to on here, to figure out which socket you need, it's pretty simple. You can tell the generation by the first number in the name. So as an example, I talked about the Intel i7 5820K, which is the first number is a 5, which means it's a 5th gen processor, which is the newest one that's out. The K at the end means that the CPU is unlocked. I'll post a link to Intel's website describing what the difference means for the letter suffixes at the end mean. Using the chart here, you can determine which socket on your motherboard you need for the CPU that you want. At this point, I'm going to go over this practical tutorial where I'm going to show you how to install a CPU and a CPU fan to a motherboard. Hello everyone, here's the practical tutorial of how to install a CPU to the motherboard. There's my CPU socket there. As you see, I'm zoomed in all the way so you can get a clear shot at it. I have my CPU here, which you can't see it because it's covered in thermal paste. I really wish I had some of the tube of the thermal paste to show you. It kind of looks like a syringe. There's no needle or anything. It just kind of shaped like that. You just push out the thermal grease here onto it, and you kind of lather it on. If you ever need to if you're cleaning a CPU, clean this stuff off, your best method to do that is to use some Q-tips and some rubbing alcohol, and you can get this stuff off of it pretty good. As I said, this chip is an AMD chip. As you can see, like I said in the tutorial, there are
there are pins at the bottom all throughout here. So you could see how it'd be very easily to break one of these pins, and if one pin is gone, you're done for. So it's important to be very careful. But yeah, when you get one of these out of the box, you're gonna wanna, if you get one straight out of the box, it's already gonna have some thermal grease on it attached to the stock fan, so you won't even need to do that much if you don't use your own. I redone the grease a time before, so it's still fresh, so I don't need any new stuff. So yeah, here's the CPU I'm putting in. This is just a stock fan, it's nothing special. I'm going to use, if you got a really high-end i7 or like the 8-core AMD I have in mind, I bought a bigger cooler for that. I believe the one I got for now is the Cooler Master Hypo 2012 cooler, which is a much larger heat sink than this, with two 120mm fans hooked up on either side, so it does a lot better than cooling than what comes with it. So without any ado, I'm going to put this in here. Make sure that the lever here is up to know that the socket's all the way out. As you can see here, there's a little arrow in the corner. That I'm going to match that with the arrow down here. I don't know if you can see it very well, but there's one in the upper right corner here. Always pay attention to where the arrow is, because it's not in the same place every time. So I'm going to put this down here very carefully. I'm just going to set it on top, so it's secure down. So I'm going to push the lever down. Yeah, you don't need to use a lot of force. No point in pushing it in there, because you'll just break the pins and break your several $100 chip. So that's a really bad idea. Just be really gentle with it. So I'm going to take my fan. This one has a nice leather mechanism to go over the two sides of it to latch down, which this one I think is kind of annoying to get on, but it's a stock fan. What can you do? So I got that on the top here. Make sure I get the like I said, this fan is quite annoying to get on. There we go. Maybe not. Alright, there we go. I'm just going to turn this the other way, and we're secure here. So here's a little plug-in. Move the camera up here a little, and I'll plug in my my CPU fan to that slot over there. When you're putting the thermal grease on the fan, on the heatsink and the CPU, you do not need that much. just a little bit out of the tube, and you just rub a thin layer between the CPU and the heatsink, and you'll be just fine. There's no use of using it by gob, because you're wasting it, and if some of that stuff leaks onto the motherboard, it has the possibility of carrying electricity between parts of the board, so that could short out your board, and you certainly don't want that. So yeah, that's how that wasn't so bad. We got the CPU locked in now, so all we have left is our memory, a hard drive, and our video card. So we're well on our way. One thing I should explain that I haven't explained yet, or I didn't explain in the tutorial video for the informational part, was with the Intel Core i series, what the difference between getting like a Core i3, i5, and i7 is that if you're the kind of person who just reads emails and browses the internet and doesn't do a whole lot with your computer, getting an i3 processor is fine. But if you want the more performance, you might want to go with an i5 or an i7. The i5 doesn't have as much performance, but it does save you on a little bit of power. If you want to go all out, get an i7, then you'll have your extra cores, more cache, more clock speed, but it's going to take up more power in your system. But if you're plugged in the wall, it shouldn't matter too much anyway. So yeah, that'll cover it for this week. Next time, I believe I'll be installing the RAM modules. So thank you for watching my videos. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.